South Africa is a country of striking contrasts, a land where breathtaking natural beauty meets the harsh realities of economic disparity. Diverse, vibrant, and deeply complicated. It's a place where hope and hardship intertwine, creating a unique and often challenging national identity. The term Rainbow Nation, coined by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, captures our dream, people of all backgrounds living together in harmony. A vision of unity after decades of division. But look closer, and you see the cracks beneath the smiles. The scars of the past run deep. Our history is not a simple, happy story. It's a tangled web of cultures, languages, and painful memories. 11 official languages hint at the complexity. This isn't just one group against another. It's a mosaic of identities, each with its own story and its own struggles. The Rainbow Nation is an aspiration, not a reality. It's the promise made in 1994, when apartheid ended and Nelson Mandela became president. A beacon of hope emerged. Building something new from the ashes of the old is messy, and sometimes you have to dig deep to fix what's fundamentally broken. The foundations of society needed repair. South Africa is an ongoing project, born from pain, navigating challenges and dreaming of a fairer future. A future where everyone has a place. Joy and sorrow, hope and despair live side by side here. The light and the shadow dance together. To understand our challenges, you must first understand this beautiful, chaotic family. A family with a complicated past and an uncertain future. That's the magic and the madness of South Africa. A nation striving to reconcile its past with its present. The white men problem isn't about individuals. It's about a system. For centuries, power, wealth, and privilege were concentrated in the hands of a small group, white men. Imagine a race where one group started miles ahead, with every advantage, while others ran barefoot and uphill. In 1994, the rules changed, but the head start didn't disappear. This isn't about blame. It's about recognizing unearned advantages and the imbalance that still shapes South Africa. In a country where over 80% are black, the top layers of the economy remain dominated by white men. It's a structural issue that holds everyone back, not just the excluded. True prosperity is impossible when most are left out. The white men problem is a challenge for all who believe in equality. To understand today, you have to look back. Colonialism began in 1652 with the Dutch, followed by the British, each wave bringing conquest and dispossession. The Khoi and San were pushed aside, their societies dismissed. The discovery of diamonds and gold made the land even more valuable, and the scramble for control more brutal. Laws like the Glenn Grey Act forced black people off their land, creating a cheap labor force. Colonialism wasn't just about land. It implanted the idea of racial superiority, taught in schools and enforced by law. By 1910, the Union of South Africa was designed as a white man's country, excluding the majority from power. The 1913 Natives Land Act reserved most land for whites, dispossessing millions. Inequality wasn't just created, it was written into law and carved into the landscape. These lines, both physical and psychological, still shape South Africa. The legacy of colonialism is everywhere. Apartheid was the brutal construction of inequality. The National Party in 1948 perfected segregation, turning it into a rigid legal system. Racial classification determined where you lived, worked, and who you could marry. The Group Areas Act and Bantu Education Act enforced separation and limited black ambition. Pass laws restricted movement. Opposition was met with violence, from Sharpeville to Soweto. Apartheid wasn't just unfair rules. It was a violent police state. It stripped the majority of land, wealth, dignity, and future. The system's logic was to crush hope and enforce division. Its scars are still visible today. Laws are abstract, often feeling distant and impersonal. They exist on paper, in books, and within the walls of courthouses. But stories make the impact real. They breathe life into the cold, hard facts, revealing the human consequences of policies and decisions. My own life was illegal. Born to a black mother and white father under Apartheid's Immorality Act, a law designed to control and separate people based on race. I grew up hidden, my very existence a challenge to the established order, a crime by my very existence. My birth defied the laws of the land. My grandmother lived her whole life in Soweto, a township designed to confine and control black South Africans. Her world deliberately made small by the system, a system that sought to limit her horizons and potential. Her potential was capped by her skin color, a cruel and arbitrary barrier to her dreams, not her ambition. She possessed a spirit that yearned for more, but the world around her conspired to hold her back. Meanwhile, a white child in a suburb lived in comfort, unaware of the stark realities faced by so many others, shielded from the struggles just beyond his neighborhood. A world of privilege and protection built on the foundation of inequality. The system's greatest trick was making injustice feel normal, to make the abnormal seem like the natural order of things. These parallel lives, one of resilience, born out of necessity, one of privilege, often taken for granted, are the human cost of apartheid. A cost measured in lost potential, broken families and shattered dreams. It wasn't just economic, it was psychological, a deep wound inflicted on the soul of a nation, dividing society into strangers, creating a chasm of misunderstanding and mistrust. Black people lost freedom and opportunity, their basic human rights denied. White people lost the truth of their country. They were robbed of the ability to see the world as it truly was. These stories echo in every interaction and debate today. The legacy of apartheid continues to shape our conversations and perspectives. We are all shaped by this divided history. Its impact is undeniable and far-reaching. The past is never just the past. It lives on in the present, influencing our future. Apartheid officially ended in 1994, marking a monumental shift in South African society and politics. It was a moment of great hope and promise for a more equitable future. But the deep-seated legacy of apartheid didn't simply vanish overnight. The structures and systems of inequality remained deeply embedded in the fabric of the nation. White South Africans, particularly men, found themselves in a position where they inherited significant economic privilege, a head start that was generations in the making. They controlled businesses, vast tracts of land, and powerful networks that had been carefully built and cultivated over generations. This provided them with opportunities and advantages that were simply not available to the majority of the population. Now, it's important to acknowledge that not every white person in South Africa is rich. But when we look at the demographics as a group, they undeniably started with a huge advantage, a legacy of privilege that continues to shape their opportunities today. Conversely, the black majority inherited a legacy of dispossession, inadequate infrastructure, a broken education system, and the crushing weight of generational poverty. Starting a business is an uphill battle when your family was systematically barred from owning property, from building any kind of wealth, or even getting access to basic financial services like loans. Even today, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, a key indicator of economic power, remains overwhelmingly white-owned. The patterns of wealth and ownership are stubbornly resistant to change. But privilege is about more than just money. It's also about social capital, the power of networks, and simply knowing how the system works, how to navigate it to your advantage. For example, a young white graduate entering the job market often has a ready-made network of connections to draw upon, whereas a black graduate, through no fault of their own, often has none. Perhaps the most explosive legacy of apartheid is the land issue. This remains the most contentious and explosive legacy, because the vast majority of agricultural land is still overwhelmingly white-owned. For many black South Africans, the issue of land is about far more than just economics. It's about dignity, cultural heritage, and historical connection. It goes beyond mere economics. Consequently, the debate over land reform is so heated and passionate because at its heart, it's about correcting a foundational wrong, a deep-seated historical injustice. Therefore, the challenge is how to fix the injustices of the past without inadvertently destroying the potential for a more prosperous and equitable future for all South Africans. Race is everywhere in South Africa: politics, workplaces, comedy, daily life. For many whites, there's fatigue. Why are we still talking about this? For many blacks, the answer is simple. We live with its consequences every day. Inequality is visible in every interaction, every drive from township to suburb. Concepts like white privilege and black economic empowerment are battlegrounds. B is seen as redress by some, reverse racism by others. White privilege can feel invisible to those struggling, but it's real in a biased system. The challenge is to find a language of empathy and accountability. Whites must acknowledge systemic advantage. Blacks must channel anger into building, not breaking. It's a tightrope walk, speaking truth without letting it tear us apart. The conversation is hard but necessary. Despite everything, South Africa is defined by resilience and hope. The spirit of Ubuntu, I am because we are, drives efforts to bridge divides. From government policies to grassroots projects, people are building a better future. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was a radical, imperfect attempt to confront history. Today, bridge building happens in small ways: sports, art, mentorship, and learning each other's languages. Affirmative action and B are controversial, but they're attempts to engineer fairness. The hope lies in intention and continued effort. The younger generation, the born frees, are less burdened by the past and more comfortable in a multicultural world. They inherit structural problems, but also the possibility of change. The work of unity is ongoing. South Africa's story is one of complexity, pain, and hope. We chose reconciliation over civil war, a miracle not to be forgotten. The white men problem is a diagnosis of a lingering imbalance, not an accusation. The path forward demands addressing past injustices without destroying the future. White South Africans must move from defensiveness to partnership, using privilege as a tool for change. The goal isn't to replace one racial preference with another, but to build a society where race no longer determines destiny. The Rainbow Nation dream is alive, but harder than we imagined. Our story is written daily, in classrooms, boardrooms, farms, and streets. South Africa is a living experiment. Can we overcome a divided past and build a just future? As long as we keep trying and keep believing in Ubuntu, there is hope.